Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Missing Frames. This is the podcast where we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. We are hanging out over here on the Nerd Party Network with the likes of Aggressive Negotiations, Filibuster, A24 Project, Nerd Nuptial, Babble for 5. There's so much good stuff to check out. Go to thenerdparty.com and do that. Also, want to give a real quick shout out to a lovely review we got on Apple Podcasts. Is it iTunes anymore? My computer hasn't updated yet, so I don't know if this has changed yet. But we got a 5-star review from Public Julian. And he said, this podcast was mentioned in one Lessons from the Screenplay. Hey, Lessons from the Screenplay. They're awesome. Check them out. So you said this podcast was mentioned in one Lessons from the Screenplay episode, and I'm glad I decided to give it a try. Love the format, and Shawn as a host is very likable. You know what? You are very likable, sir. And Shawn asks the exact questions I'd like to hear. Greetings from Berlin. Well, greetings from Georgia. Thank you so much for writing in that review. I really, really appreciate it. And again, if you have a review you want to submit, please do so. Give us a 5-star rating. I will read your review on a future episode. But this is episode 80. We have reached another Missing Frames milestone, and you know what that means. That means we've got Brad Gullickson back on the show. Brad, welcome back.
Yeah. It's good to be back. Not much has happened in the world since episode 70.
Not too much. No, that's what I was going to mention. It feels like just old times. Nothing has changed. Nothing crazy.
Business as usual.
I will say this though, Brad. I this is what I need. At this crazy time, I need a good conversation with you. I miss you.
Yes.
And you are so dear to me. We haven't hung out or really chatted since Sundance.
Yeah, that's true. And I've been aching for episode 80. I've been going like, come on, Shawn, get through those other dregs. Let's get to the real episode.
This is what it's all about. These milestone episodes. Everything else, it's just filler. It's just filler. It's just
that's
something
how I
to put
treat
out
it
there as a means to get to these episodes.
Yeah.
All due respect to everyone else. You're
no respect to any of your other co-hosts.
All right. Well, if we're going that route,
I'm a jerk. You're a nice person.
I'm very excited. So typically, if you haven't listened to the other episodes that Brad and I have done together, they're very easy to find. Just go back. It's every 10 episodes. He was on 70, 60, 50. I want to say all the way back to 30. Is that the case?
Yeah, 30 was my first one. That was Dirty Harry.
It was Dirty Harry. So we have basically been interchanging what Brad has dubbed and what I have now taken on as a new label. They're called Heart Films, which are movies we absolutely adore that are so near and dear to us that we just have to share them with each other. And we've been trading off since episode 30 of Missing Frames, where Brad introduced me to Dirty Harry. Then I think we flipped the switch. It was My Neighbor Totoro, where I introduced that to you. Then Big Trouble in Little China. And what was it, The Graduate after that?
Yep.
And then what was next? Was it Johnny Guitar after that?
Johnny Guitar was after The Graduate, yes.
And was that episode 70?
Yes.
God, that feels like ages ago.
But what a crazy, wonderful, eclectic collection of cinema those movies are. You can't really like connect them in any kind of thematic way or era. Like they are just
that's true. I mean, I will say that much for us.
They're heart movies.
Yeah, they're heart movies, and the best thing about them is you're right. There's no consistency in terms of genre or tone. It's basically movies that we love, and it's been so much fun getting to do this and getting to see some of your favorites, and in turn getting to introduce you to some of my favorites. And it's once again my turn to introduce you to another favorite of mine. And this is so exciting because, as I've mentioned before, Brad is just an expert film junkie. I can't hope to aspire to this level. Brad has seen so many movies. It's so hard to pick films that he hasn't seen that I love. A lot of the time it's just, I'll send over my list and Brad's like, yeah, I haven't seen this random documentary about a tribe called Quest and this other movie. So it's very tough. But in this case, we found something that I think is going to be very, very special. It is Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal, which is one of the great films of all time. And Brad has never seen this, which I was shocked to hear when you mentioned that.
I hate to break the news to you, Shawn, but I have never seen an Ingmar Bergman film. So you were
What
saying
is
like,
happening?
oh, what a great cineast this guy is. He's a movie maniac. He's so cultured, and not a single Ingmar Bergman movie in my brain. So clearly, I am not that great of a film fan.
But you've got to explain this to me, because I could have sworn for the longest time I was like, oh yeah, Bergman. I won't even mention that because I assume you've seen it, but you haven't. So what's the deal there? What's going on?
There's no deal, Shawn. There are a lot of movies in the world. And, you know, when I grew up, I was not the type of movie kid to watch foreign film. I was an ignorant American, as we're going to hear throughout this episode when I cannot pronounce anyone's name properly. And I just had no interest in world cinema. Now that started to change in college when I discovered Akira Kurosawa and then became obsessed with Japanese cinema. And then, you know, from that I went to Fassbinder and, actually, you know, Guillermo del Toro and Kronos and The Devil's Backbone had a big part in me branching out beyond our borders. And now I have watched a lot of foreign cinema, a lot of French New Wave. I love French crime films. But I have not yet gone into the world of Bergman. And I think maybe in some ways the reason is because I'm familiar with a lot of the imagery already because of how it has been co-opted by films like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey and The Last Action Hero.
500 Days of Summer had a reference too.
500 Days of Summer, Virgin Spring. I've already seen it as Last House on the Left. So I need to like finally see the OG content and not just, you know, be satisfied with the perfect, undisputable masterpiece of performance that William Sadler gives as Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
I could not agree more with you, and I'm so excited at some point to watch Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey with my wife Sarah, who only just saw Excellent Adventure for an earlier episode of Missing Frames. But it's so funny that you mentioned your journey into foreign film or appreciating foreign film and starting to learn a little bit more about it. I had a very similar trajectory. And when I say very similar, I mean, I also really started to explore foreign film and international film. In film school, one of the first films I watched that I was like, I should like start to take this seriously and really start to learn from the best, Akira Kurosawa. I watched Seven Samurai for the first time in film school. I loved it. Then my next film was Ingmar Bergman's Seventh Seal. I think I just had an obsession. I was like, well, 7's a good number. That's probably my favorite number. I'll just go ahead and watch these movies with 7 in the title. And then David Fincher's 7 was next. No, that's not true. But really, that was kind of, are there two better filmmakers to say, like, I want to really start to delve into the world of filmmaking, great films, great cinema. That's like an insane 1-2 punch. And I mean, the films couldn't be more different, but they both opened me up in such an incredible way to this like possibility of art film or a film, a kind of genre, different kinds of genres that I hadn't really delved into.
It's not
before.
even about genre, right? It's really about point of view.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're a kid and you're raised almost exclusively on the films that are that come through your television set.
Spielberg, Lucas, and then whatever else.
Yeah. And you're just seeing a straight white male's point of view. And it is a crazy revelation when you start to watch films not from the point of view of a straight white dude.
Although Bergman is, where he was, very straight, very white, and very much a dude.
Yes, that's true. A straight white American dude.
Yes, that's
like,
true.
The single point of view is what I think you need to vary on. And that's why we need more voices from more places in our art.
I agree. And I think that was really a lot of what stunned me. And, you know, I was maybe like, I think it was like 20 or so, but it was just both those films. Seven Samurai is just like, I mean, it's one of the great films of all time, an incredible action movie, hugely influential on pretty much everything. So that was just a blast to watch. And Seventh Seal is obviously, Bergman is known for being more somber, much more introspective. Not that Kurosawa wasn't, but Bergman really... there is a period where he was really focusing on the relationship between God and mankind, or the existence of God. Is there a God? What does it mean to believe in God, even if you're losing your faith? Like lots of questions of faith, doubt, life and death, very, very heavy themes. And that was to go from Seven Samurai to Seventh Seal was so, I loved them both for completely different reasons. But that was my first exposure to Bergman, and it really left a mark on me. I didn't really start to get obsessed with Bergman until later on, funnily enough. I think I was at, McKay in Manassas.
Oh, yeah.
The used bookstore. I was there, and I found a copy of Fanny and Alexander, and I had only seen up to this point The Seventh Seal, and I think it was The Silence, which is another great Bergman movie, but completely horrified me when I first. It overwhelmed me when I saw it as a 20-year-old, and I had a moment where I was like, "Do I get this? This is the Criterion Collection. It's beautiful. It's Blu-ray. It's like $20 as opposed to $40. I should get this." I got it. I watched it and loved it. And that kind of opened up a door to me just exploring Bergman's films. That's never really stopped. Since I moved to Atlanta in 2017, I think I've been watching and exploring Bergman films. And then Criterion released this stunning box set that is just full. I think it's 43 Bergman films, and I have just been indulging in that. Haven't even gotten through all of them, but am just taking my precious time. Bergman, as somebody who was raised in a Christian environment and holds those beliefs, Bergman really spoke very personally to me. It's a lot of stuff that resonates very strongly with me about the dealing with doubt. The possible absence of a God and like a cruel, unforgiving world, and how you cope with that and how people deal with that. It's heavy stuff, but I think one of the mistakes people make is they consider Bergman kind of like, oh, it's just very sad and serious and tragic. But there's also a sense of fun to some of his movies that I'm curious to see if you get that out of Seventh Seal.
Well, you've had a pretty good track record so far. That's the nice thing about these last, anniversary episodes is neither of us have watched a film where we're like, oh, I hate to tell you, but that was dog doo-doo. We've come away and enjoyed all of the films for the most part. So pressure is on, and I'm betting that I am going to at least like it / respect the movie, since all of cinema seems to believe that this is a masterpiece. I seriously doubt I'll come away and go like, okay, well, that's hot doo-doo. I mean, maybe we have a Gone with the Wind situation, which is hot doo-doo. Bam, shots fired. But I have a feeling that I'm going to enjoy The Seventh Seal in some manner or not.
Based on a lot of the imagery in this film, I think people have a certain idea of what it is and what kind of vibe it is. So I'm going to be very interested to hear what you think and if it aligned with those views. But that was something else.
Well, do you want me to tell you what I think this movie is about? Because
I was going to ask
never
you
seen a trailer. I've seen images, I've seen stills, I've seen the Criterion box art. I've never read a Wikipedia page. I haven't looked at the IMDb. I know nothing about this movie outside of how it relates to Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey and The Last Action Hero.
Well, that's what I want to know. I was going to ask you, tell me right now, what do you know about this movie? Like, what if you could describe the plot? Just tell me what you know.
Well, so there's some seals. And I'm guessing there's 10 seals.
10 seals.
And the seventh seal's the most important seal.
Absolutely.
And to crack that seal, Max von Sydow has to...
Is it Sydow? Is that...
don't. Again, ugly American.
I'm just saying, I've always
idea.
pronounced it von Sydow or von Sydow.
So you say
Sydow.
Sydow or you... Hold on. What do you say?
I say I used to say Von Sydow, and then I changed it to Von Sydow because I heard somebody say Von Sydow. But I
don't even remember what I just said.
You said Sydow. Sydow?
Max von Sydow. Oh, yeah, that's how I say it. Max von
All right,
Sydow.
we're going to say Max von Sydow. I'm going to try to stick with it just for consistency's sake. Even if it's wrong, just deal with it.
Somebody I guarantee you it's wrong. Don't go with me.
Us. Tell us how to pronounce his name.
But anyway, so Max von Sydow, he is doing a chess game or a game of Twister and with death. And if he beats death at this game, he cracks the seventh seal and maybe goes to heaven.
Okay.
I don't know. Or the afterlife of some kind.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's battling for his soul. I don't know.
This is great. This is absolutely great. You don't know how happy this makes me to hear you try to stumble around what this movie is. I'm going to be very excited to hear what you think when we come back to discuss this movie. So let's get to it and watch The Seventh Seal.
All right.
Now available to own on video cassette.
And we're back. Brad, tell me, what did you think of The Seventh Seal?
It was okay.
Is that how you genuinely feel? It was just okay?
No, it was great, Shawn. I loved it.
I never know, Brad. You know how it is. You know when we do these episodes, there's always that fear that one of us is finally going to introduce the other to a movie that's like, it's okay. And you never know. Every movie we've shown each other has been like something wonderful about it. But I'm always so on edge. But that makes me so happy. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
No, I thought it was fantastic. Not only was it extremely pretty to look at. I mean, it's a gorgeous, crazy gorgeous looking movie. But I found it. I found the conversation that was happening. Block's like wrestle with faith and his anger towards God and the silence of God and that idea. Extremely interesting and compelling. Not an original struggle, not an original philosophical battle. It's a constant battle for humanity, but also the backdrop of the Black Plague, given the pandemic that we're all living right now, also hits home. And I was extremely surprised by how large the cast of the film actually was. In my mind, I thought this was a twofer. I just thought it was Block and Death. And no, it turns out there's a merry band of interesting, weird characters who all have an arc and who are all struggling in different ways. And I was moved by all of their stories. And I thought their performances were fantastic. I loved this movie. Guess what? The universe is right. It is a masterpiece.
Oh, yes. That makes me so happy. And you know what's funny? I think you mentioned quirky characters. One of the things I think, and I watched this with my wife who had never seen it before. One of the things I think that surprised me the first time I watched it, and it's fun to see other people be surprised by this, because you hear of Seventh Seal, you hear of Ingmar Bergman. It's almost the same reaction people get when you talk about Russian literature. I'm a huge fan of Dostoevsky. The Brothers Karamazov is probably my favorite book ever. And I think a lot of people think of Crime and Punishment and they're like, oh, Russian literature, it's so moody and dark and it's too intense.
Crime and Punishment is brutal, Shawn.
It is. I mean, you're not wrong. But I think a lot of people think the same thing about Ingmar Bergman and particularly Seventh Seal. Now, there are Ingmar Bergman movies that are incredibly dark and just the pit of your stomach despair. There's no hope. Seventh Seal touches on that, but something that I think is fun to see in people's reactions watching this movie, I don't think people expect it to be as funny as it is. It is very quirky. It is very like almost Shakespearean. There are a lot of elements. I get a little I do feel like there's a Shakespearean comedy element to this movie. And I don't think it's a mistake because Smiles of a Summer Night, Bergman's previous film, the one he made right before this, I think is based on Midsummer Night's Dream. So some of that feels like it carried over into this screenplay, but there are just there's a cast of quirky characters, and the movie is genuinely funny at points. It's also incredibly depressing, but were you expecting the humor and the quirkiness?
Well, you had sort of alluded to that in our previous conversation. But what was hilarious is that I had a conversation with my dad right before I watched it. I was talking to my parents, and they're like, "Oh, what are you going to do today?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm about to watch The Seventh Seal." And my dad goes, "Ugh, no, thank you." And I was like, "What? You don't like The Seventh Seal?" He's like, "Oh, those Swedes, they're so drab and what did he say? Depressing." He said, depressing. Ingmar Bergman. I was like, "Have you seen Seventh Seal?" And he goes, "No."
That's what happens.
I was like, "I don't know. My friend Shawn says there's actually some funny bits to it." He's like, "Well, you let me know." And I will tell my dad, because it's actually an incredibly whimsical film. I would not classify it as depressing in any way. Okay. Does it deal with death? Yes. Does it deal with the Black Plague and the inevitability that all our lives end? Yes. But that is something that we should all acknowledge. And they speak on that directly in the film, is that to appreciate life, you have to appreciate your mortality and the fact that this could be your last hour on this planet. Are you satisfied? And of course, it brings in the conversation of faith. And as somebody who grew up religious, that's never really been a question for me or a concern that I've ever had. But the idea of, well, am I satisfied with my life right now? Like, if I died today, would I be happy with what I have done? Would I leave any regrets? And I think we do have to, confront that mortality and consider that mortality on a routine basis. And I do not think that observation, that internal checklist that you give yourself, I don't think that is a sad thing. I think that it is a necessary thing. Now, Block is in tremendous pain because he fears that there is no God, or that the God out there has turned his or her back to humanity.
Or existence is meaningless. If there is no God, then what is the point of anything? And he's a knight in the Crusades. He's just come back. He spent a decade fighting for this holy war. To come back and to feel this sense of despair and emptiness while this terrible plague is ravaging the country, it's this sense, the unique sense of despair that Bergman is so good at, and really, really perfected it in Seventh Seal. But that sense of, and this is not the only movie that Bergman would question the existence of God. He would get to some very, very dark places with this topic. But Seventh Seal, I think it strikes the perfect balance between hope and pessimism. And but there is the sense Antonius Block is Bergman, essentially, is that struggle. Bergman was really trying to process his fear of death with this movie. And I know
think
he said
Block is a lot of people.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think Bergman was attempting to answer that question for himself. That he said, by writing death and by having this kind of battle of wits with death through the character of Antonius Block, he was able to become less fearful of the concept of death by making it this character, by embodying it in this way as this guy with kind of pale clown makeup, like just sort of being able to funnel and express his fears in that way helped him overcome it. I think that's a stunning thing. And I think that's part of why Seventh Seal is so powerful, because it's such an expression of his truth and what he was feeling at the time.
I of course, responded to it. Like I said, I think there are so many really cool sequences there. I think Death, as played by, and I'm going to butcher his name here, but Bengt Erkarat. Sorry, Bengt. Talking about the various interpretations of this death in other mediums. We were joking about Last Action Hero death and how it's portrayed by Ian McKellen in that film, and William Sadler playing this version of death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. One of my biggest surprises coming out of this was how the Ian McKellen idea of this death, the very morose, somber one, that is a version of death written by somebody who thinks they've seen The Seventh Seal. That version of death is written by my dad. But the version that William Sadler plays in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is much more closer to what Bengt and Bergman have done, because there is a wry sense of humor.
I mean, the opening scene, it opens with a laugh line. I think, or not like immediately, but you have this moment. You're setting up these stunning shots of the beach, Antonius Block praying, and then all of a sudden, Death appears, and it's like the sound gets sucked out of the film. And you feel the effectiveness. It's this guy standing there. Bergman said that was one of his greatest accomplishments as a filmmaker, because he was so afraid people were going to laugh and like be like, "What are you talking about? This guy is Death? Like, what do you the guy in a robe and white makeup? What is this?" He said he was so proud that no one questioned it. People were like, "Yeah, that's Death. It's perfect." But I think he was so brilliant, and the sound design is so brilliant in that moment because of the fact that you kind of have the waves lapping up on the beach, and the loud sound of that, it just disappears, and you have this figure standing there. But the effectiveness, the terror of it is almost undercut by this witty exchange between Antonius and Death when he's like, "Oh, do you play chess? How did you know?" "Well, I've seen paintings." "Well, how about that?" "All right, so let's sit down and get to it." You're right. There's this wittiness to it. And whenever people talk about like, "Oh, this movie is so somber and serious," it absolutely is. I agree. But like, then you also have a moment like Death like sawing down the tree, which is almost like, that's borderline Monty Python stuff. It's so funny.
Yes. He's like, why are you cutting my tree? He's like, "Oh, your time's here. Like, it's time for you to go. You're joining me, so I'm going to saw down your tree." Like, it's a comic beat. It's funny. And just to speak to your point about the use of silence, when the film starts and we get the credit sequence and there is no score and you're just watching names on black, you're like, "Oh, okay, all right. I am not ready to watch this movie. I'm in a pretty good mood. I don't want to just face the cold quiet of my end." And then the film starts off, and then we get a little bit of score, and we get all the sound design, and we get the waves, and then Death appears, and boom, silence again. And it does feel like a bit of a gut punch when Death first appears, and then when he reappears, and the tree scene is funny. The confessional scene where Block is confessing his sins and his worries and his fears, and he doesn't realize that he's talking to Death on the other side of the mesh. Like, that scene is also really, really funny. But in a
it's funny, but it's way, also like Bergman. He was so, I mean, this was, I think, his 17th film. So by this point he had he'd cut his teeth a little bit on the whole filmmaking thing, but it had taken him to this point to really encapsulate something that was very, very personal and true. I've watched a lot of his films before this, and some of the best ones, like Smiles of a Summer Night, which is just a comedy. It's basically just almost a slapstick comedy. And Summer with Monica, Summer Interlude, those start to touch on this. Seventh Seal is the first one where you feel like he's like all this stuff that he was kind of alluding to just comes out fully formed, and it's almost like him just venting and getting it all off his chest. That scene in particular, it's stunning to watch because Max von Sydow's performance is so captivating. But you're right, just that knowledge that it's Death who is listening on the other end, and then that moment where he's like, "I'll have to remember that," and Antonius Block realizes.
I think it's so funny.
It is. It's great, and it's also, but the movie is always playing with your emotions in that way, and there is Bergman strikes the balance of humor with some of the most despairing tragedy better than so many filmmakers who have tried to do the same, because this movie will make you laugh. Like, you will actually let out like real legitimate laughs, and then the next second you will be like, "Oh God." Oh, like the moment where one of the perfect moments, one of my favorite scenes in the whole film, they're doing the play, and you have this it's just, they're doing this play in town, Joff and Mia, and then their friend runs off with the blacksmith's wife, and so everything is kind of, their song is playing out over this really goofy seduction scene, which is just hilarious.
And that song is insane.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous song, and then it transitions into the chanting and these people just self-flagellating themselves, whipping themselves, carrying crosses, and this message of sheer doom. I feel like that sequence and the sudden shift is so representative of the film as a whole, where you're kind of like, this is fun and I'm enjoying it, and then boom, all of a sudden tragedy strikes or something terrible happens, and this like immediate doom that you just feel in the pit of your stomach.
My favorite sequence in the whole movie is the most horrific sequence in my mind. And that's when Block and Jones, the squire, are watching the poor woman burn at the stake because they've condemned her as a witch. And the squire is saying, look, who's answering, this woman's prayers? Like, what is she looking at right now as the flames consume her? There's nothing, Block. There is nothing she's seeing. She is entering into oblivion. There is no God.
Yeah.
And Block starting to consider that as a reality, and the horror transferring from this woman's pain to this man's emotional turmoil, this emotional agony that he is experiencing. That sequence, there's nothing funny about that. I mean, it is an absolutely gut-wrenching, brutal, grotesque moment in the entire film, but also shot really beautifully.
Yeah, it's a harrowing moment. I completely agree with you. This is all, Bergman doesn't get necessarily a lot of credit for this. His films are so psychological and so concerned with like these big ideas of life and death. And I think he has a reputation for being so artsy and so kind of like in this realm. He doesn't get a lot of credit for honestly being one of the best horror directors, I think, ever. None of his films, I don't think Seventh Seal would technically be labeled a horror film, but frankly, there are moments in this that are more frightening than some of the just like more generic horror films I've seen. And even some of the ones that are considered classics, like Seventh Seal is a movie you could watch on Halloween and consider a horror movie. I think it's very interesting that Bergman has never gotten as much credit as he deserves, because that's not even the limit. That's starting to scratch the surface of some of the things he unveils in films like Persona or Hour of the Wolf or even Wild Strawberries, which is not really as horrific as this film, but has a couple of dream sequences in it that are very, very unsettling. Bergman gets, I don't think he gets enough credit for being capable of evoking such dread, even in some of his most uplifting films. Because Seventh Seal, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't call it uplifting, but it has a hopeful ending. Block may have met his demise and there's no escaping death, but he does save the family. He does save Joff and Mia and Mikael, their son.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's how I interpret it as well. Like you talking about it in the context of a horror film, the movie I was thinking would be a great double feature with The Seventh Seal is a film that was clearly inspired by it in some fashion, which is Roger Corman's The Mask of the Red Death, starring Vincent Price. Corman, as a producer, would go on and bring Bergman films to the United States through his production company. A lot of the Bergman films that we know and love came to America because of Roger Corman. And you look at Mask of the Red Death, which is also set in a Black Plague-like situation and involves personifications of death. It's I think, a perfect companion piece to it. Of course, it's in color and shot by Nicholas Roeg, and is absolutely beautiful in its own right. But I immediately, when I got done with Seventh Seal, I was like, no, now I got to go watch Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah, because I haven't seen the film, but I've read the story, and I know the story.
You got to.
I would love to, and I think, but I
movie.
can totally see if it's anything like the story that Poe wrote, it does evoke those feelings, that sense, especially
a little like the Poe story.
Well, I think especially, thinking of Edgar Allan Poe and Mask of the Red Death, I think the last scene, or not the last scene, but the second to last scene where they're all in the knight's house, they're all in Block's house, and the knocking on the door. That for me, that's one of, I think there are a couple moments that stand out to me as being particularly horrifying and kind of, I think, put this that should put this film in the conversation of great horror films. But that moment, they're just in this cold kind of, everything is just gray stone, partially because it's black and white, but also these big cold rooms. Everyone is kind of solemn and quiet. His wife is her response to seeing him is muted. There's a sense of sadness there where they kind of have a moment where she's like, I recognize you. And he just can't connect with the person he used to be or his wife. And then you just have her reading this terrifying verse from the Bible as they just kind of wait it out and lead into their deaths. And that scene in particular is where I get the Mask of the Red Death, those vibes from
for
it.
sure, for sure.
I think that, and then another sequence in particular I find really dreadful is the moment where they happen upon that guy that they've been running into the whole movie, that the squire, he marks his face. He's in the forest and he's like, I've got the plague, please, you got to help me. And they're just like, no, we can't help him. And him squirming around and just screaming because he is so terrified to die. It is so harrowing. There's a lot of moments in this film that are like that. And on the flip side, there are lots of moments that are joyous and beautiful. The moment where Block first meets the family, where he first meets Mia and Mikkel and Joff, and he sees this glimmer of hope in this family. And I love that scene, that just this moment of calm and beauty within this film that has been kind of pulling your emotions in all directions. And when Block is kind of saying like, I will remember this moment. I will remember sitting here with you and eating these strawberries. And it's kind of funny that she goes, oh, I'm going to go get some wild strawberries. And Bergman's next film was Wild Strawberries. But I love that. These moments of beauty that undercut the horror of it. But people, they don't talk enough about how great a horror director Bergman is, but they also don't talk about how humane he is and the humanity in his films and the beauty in his films. But were there moments that kind of impressed you in that regard where you weren't, you were kind of expecting something so cold? We talked a little bit about the human qualities in the comedy, but were there other moments that impressed you like that?
Well, that sequence there where he's with the family and he's eating the strawberries and drinking from the bowl of milk. And there's that one shot where it's directly on him and he's talking to himself about appreciating the flavors that he's experiencing, appreciating the weather around him, appreciating the people around him. And he takes that bowl and he's talking and he slowly drinks from the bowl, and you see the satisfaction in which he takes in that sip. And, it reminds me of something that Lisa and I, my wife, say to each other all the time. And we're stealing it right from a Nerdist reference, a Chris Hardwick reference of all people. And I apologize for that. But it's when in Nerdist, they would say, like, you got to enjoy your burrito, right? Like, as you're eating your burrito, you got to enjoy it. You got to savor that burrito. You have to be in the moment. You have to live in the now. And that's what Block is doing. He's living in the now, and he is enjoying his milk. And maybe now Lisa and I can say, enjoy your milk, rather than enjoy your burrito. But, so I found that to be beautiful. And also, there are multiple moments in the film where the fourth wall is broken and characters look directly at you, the audience. And those moments really surprised me as well. Like you said, the cliche is that Bergman is a cold director, or that Swedish cinema is a cold cinema. And that's clearly not the case. And the only people who would say that would be people like my dad, who have never seen a Bergman movie.
Right.
And people like me, because had never seen a Bergman movie until today.
Right. Well, I think it's funny that, it's Gunnar Bjornstrand. I'm sure I butchered his name too. We're going to just butcher all the names. It's something I typically do on the show, but especially in this case. But, he plays Jones, the squire. And he, again, that Shakespearean quality, the wonderful dialogue. He in particular is very theatrical, and he's the comedic foil a lot of the times. He's he's not bumbling or anything like that. And in fact, he's very capable and he's kind of frightening. And like you said, in that moment in particular, with Block kind of despairing over this woman being burned at the stake, and Jons is just, I don't know if it's Johns or Jons. I'm going to say Jons.
Don't worry.
But he is so like, and it's in the last scene too, where he's just like, nope, there's nothing. This is what you like. This is it. This is what's happening. There is no God. This is the true despair. You should have appreciated your life, but now you can't, and it's all over. But he is also the epitome kind of, he's one of, there's a sense of joy around his character, and he is so fun. And I love the moment where he's kind of narrating the scene where the blacksmith and his wife Lisa are like, she's kind of like, oh no, I'm sorry, I lost my mind, but now I come back to you and I love you. And Jens is in the background narrating, and he's like, oh God, why did you create woman? This is ridiculous. Now she'll be telling him she'll make her his favorite dish and things like that are just, it's so funny. And I don't think people expect that at all from this kind of film.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, if we jump back to the climax when death has taken them all and they are having the dance of death going up that hillside, that is also a very beautiful moment and an acknowledgement that, you know, death comes to everyone. And there's nothing bad or terrible or horrible about death. It's an inevitability and something that we all face. It's how we live our life up to that moment that matters. And so when Joff has his final vision and he sees death taking these people up the hillside as they dance arm in arm, he's not disturbed by it. He admires it. He accepts it. He understands it.
Yes, there's a sense of amazement there, and it's this. I mean, like you said, the image it's legendary. This film is legendary, and it's so nice to have a film that can live up to that legend. But like that shot, the shot of death on the beach, the playing chess, just Max von Sydow. Practically every shot of him in this film, it's like in the cinematic lexicon as being iconic. But when you actually see it in the context of the film and just see how beautifully it works, because it's just this haunting image. But like you said, it's something that I've seen this movie a few times now, but this is the first time I really picked up on Joff and Mia's storyline and how Block really not necessarily sacrifices himself because he's going to lose the chess game anyway, but he actually makes an effort to distract death, to allow them to escape, was something that I guess I didn't notice in previous viewings, but it was the first time I really was like, okay, so there is a sense of victory. Even if it's a small victory, Block can, he's going to meet his demise and he knows there's no escaping, but at the very least he can save this beautiful family, these people that he's met and that he, in such a short time, has come to love and admire. He's like, I can't do anything. I can't escape this, but I can save them. And
but he's not actually saving them, right? He's delaying their time. Block's saying, like, it's not your time. And he's giving them some time together so that they can continue to be a family. That baby is just a baby, right?
Yeah.
But even that baby is going to have the dance of death.
Yes. But it's also, it's the fact that death is like, oh, I see, that man and his wife and that child. And he's like, and Block is like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he goes, oh, nothing. It's just, I love the way Block, it's all inevitable, but Block in that moment is able to provide them with the distraction they need.
Well, what
escape.
I like about it is that action, it reaffirms his connection to humanity. It reaffirms his belief and hope in the world around him, in the people that populate it, having just come from the Crusades, where he has witnessed so much atrocity, and he is in the midst of the Black Plague. It is so easy to despair, but in distracting death in that moment and giving the family more time together, he is saying, like, humanity is all right. Like, there are aspects of it that should be cherished as well.
Yeah, and there's this sense of he sees something that he lost by leaving his wife and going to fight in the cruise. He sees this kind of alternative life that he could have had, that he finds so beautiful, but he recognizes like, this is not the life I will ever be able to partake in. And the way he makes it his mission to see to it that kind of gets a chance, like you're saying, it may not be forever, but at least there's a chance of them getting to experience everything. And it's why the film ultimately, as sad and depressing as it can be, and as horrifying as it can be, it's no accident that the film ends on the moment with the family getting to, they see, Joff sees the dance of death off in the distance, and then his wife is just kind of like, oh, you and your visions, this is so funny, and they get to go off and kind of, not into the sunset, but like there's a reason the last shot isn't the dance of death. Sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I feel like it's such a striking image that I feel like it's the final shot of the film, but it's not. It's the wagon, it's the family in the wagon going off into the distance, and I think that's very intentional, and it's why, again, the movie is full of despair, but it's not. Despair is not its ultimate goal. It's not trying to say like everything is lost and hopeless. It's the inevitability of death. It's the fear of it, but also the sense of like there is beauty to be found. You just have to be willing to put aside your ego or your fear or your self-involvement to recognize that, as Block does.
Absolutely agreed. And the other thing that I was surprised about with this film is that it's only like 96 minutes or something like that.
It's a short movie.
It's a short movie, and I think when you hear the Seventh Seal, you tend to think about Seven Samurai and how Seven Samurai is so darn long. But the Seventh Seal, it trots, it moves at a clip. And I was shocked when the movie was over. And I was like, oh man, I should not have put off 40 years of my life to watch this movie.
Yeah.
I should have gotten to this already.
Bergman, he's made films that are shorter and somehow feel longer than this movie, but it is impressive how well paced it is. It is one of those things where I kind of describe it as it's almost his Dark Side of the Moon, where Pink Floyd made other albums that are fantastic, maybe arguably better than Dark Side of the Moon, but in a lot of ways they never topped Dark Side of the Moon. I feel like Seventh Seal in many ways is Bergman's Dark Side of the Moon, where just every single thing aligned and was perfectly rendered to tell the story he needed to tell. It was just the perfect blend of everything his career is about. One of the things that's amazing about going back, and this is going to be harder to talk about with you since you haven't seen any of his other works, but hopefully soon you will. One of the things that strikes me about watching Seventh Seal again, I'm continuing to go through his filmography. I've been watching through my giant Ingmar Bergman set. And we were joking about it before. I don't think I've really emphasized just how much I love Ingmar Bergman. I mean, for the past couple years, I've just been obsessed with him. I think I have so many, like I have his autobiography, this book called Images that is all about, it's just him describing the productions of each of his films in particular. I have the giant Ingmar Bergman archives book. I love him so much. I just, again, I'm not alone in that. The guy it's Ingmar Bergman, for crying out loud. I'm not saying that as if to do, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be lukewarm about it. I love Bergman. He's probably, like, if I were to make a list of 10 favorite filmmakers, Bergman would most likely be on that list. And I just adore him. And one of the things that's fascinating, going back to The Seventh Seal, which was the first Bergman movie I saw, as I'm going through his filmography, Bergman can be very, very cold and detached. And Seventh Seal is a film that is very, it's very invested in humanity. And it has a warmth to it that not a lot of his later films have. His later films become much more disturbing, much more emotionally cut off, much more surreal. I mean, you have got to see Persona. It is a nuts movie. It is one of the most insane movies I've ever seen. I don't think you would ever guess that the guy who made Seventh Seal also made that movie. And that was what was interesting. Seventh Seal almost feels conventional as a film, even though it's so outside the general norm of what you would expect from it's an art film. Many people consider it an art film. They in their ignorance kind of don't realize how kind of accepting and embracing it is. But Bergman, his reputation as kind of cold and intense and disturbing, it's merited because so many of his films delve even deeper into the darkness. There's his Silence trilogy, which comes a few years after Seventh Seal, which was Through a Glass Darkly, Winter Light, and the film The Silence. 3 films that deal with the silence of God, quote unquote, where he was kind of exploring and finally putting to rest his faith. He, I think, emerged from that trilogy as, I think, an atheist or an agnostic, but was basically like, through these films, I've kind of purged myself of this belief in God. And all 3 of them are beautiful films. Winter Light in particular, you've seen First Reformed, right?
Yes, I love First Reformed. Yeah.
You need to see Winter Light. Look up, after we're done, look up Winter Light on the Wikipedia page. When I saw the trailer for First Reformed, I was like, somebody just watched Winter Light, Paul Schrader. And that is... They're not exactly the same film, but there are a lot of similarities down to the visuals. And The Silence in particular is just a deeply disturbing film, about as unconventional as Bergman would get. I can't recommend them enough, but it was fascinating going back to Seventh Seal and almost feeling like, wow, this is kind of conventional in a way. It has a musical score. It has like kind of like little montages, and its intent is to kind of keep the audience on board with that. I don't think the movie tries to put the audience at arm's length, whereas Bergman later on in his career would very purposefully kind of be expressing himself in a way that he was like, I do not care what other people think. I'm just going to make this and I'm going to get it out there and you can deal with it. But that was one of the weirdest things about going back to Seventh Seal after all this time.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I would not even call Seventh Seal an art film. I think the only reason anyone would call it an art film is because it's in Swedish and it looks nothing like 50s era American films in any way. Like if the 50s American cinema must be the most dull cinema of any decade.
Right.
Of course there's good things in there, but like as a general rule, it's like my least favorite cinematic decade.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Seventh Seal compared to a film today, I think an American audience or a general audience would watch this film and be totally engaged and not necessarily consider it an art film in any way.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you is, as a Bergman fanatic, and as somebody and me who has only seen Seventh Seal, if I were to go out and watch another Bergman movie, like where would I go? You're talking about how he's made all these great films, but maybe nothing is quite like the Seventh Seal. It's like when we first encountered Kurosawa, as we were talking about, you watch Seven Samurai, but once you watch Seven Samurai and you go to Redbeard and you go to Ikiru and you go to Rashomon and Stray Dog and The Bad Sleep Well, Seven Samurai is not my favorite Kurosawa film, but will the Seventh Seal end up being my favorite Bergman film?
I honestly don't think it will. I think just knowing you and getting to know you as we've recorded these episodes together and your tastes and where you kind of fall, I think Seventh Seal is definitely it is a very good one to introduce people to Bergman. It's not like this is a film where it's like, oh, well, this is just the accessible film that you have to get through before you get to the good stuff. This is still my favorite Bergman film, partially because it was my first Bergman film, but also, like I said, I think he strikes the balance of accessible and cerebral very well in this film. That being said, I think there are arguments to be made that he topped himself with later films and films that became more cerebral. Some would say his follow-up film, Wild Strawberries, which was released amazingly in the same year as Seventh Seal, 1957, some people think that's better. There are people who think Winter Light is the best, and many, many people think Persona is the best. Or even there's Cries and Whispers, Autumn Sonata, Fanny and Alexander, Scenes from a Marriage. There's so much. I think probably... Man, it's tough to say where do you go next, but frankly, I would even check out Wild Strawberries next because it is a completely different film made in the same year, and you start to see a little bit more of his surrealist tendencies, his dreamlike quality come into play, because he actually depicts there are some really disturbing dream sequences in there. I would also probably point you in the direction of Persona, just because I want to hear your reaction to that movie so badly. But you can't really, there are a handful of Bergman films where you can't really go wrong. The guy was just a master, and to watch Seventh Seal and having seen so many other later films that he's done, is to be reminded that Seventh Seal was really just the start of his genius. I don't think even he'd perfected. And I know he loved the Seventh Seal. Seventh Seal is one of a small handful of films that he made that he was actually proud of, like genuinely, like, I love this. But even he was like, it's not perfect, it's okay. You know, I guess you have permission to beat up on your own work when you're Ingmar Bergman, but I don't think even his technique is perfected here. I think it is perfected in later works that are just powerful and magnificent and in just masterful filmmaking in completely different ways. But I would even say Winter Light, which is a lesser known one of his films, but one of my absolute favorites, and I think one of his best. As a First Reformed fan, you owe it to yourself to watch Winter Light just for comparison's sake. And frankly, it's shocking to me that more people never made the comparison between First Reformed and Winter Light, because the comparisons are so striking and obvious. I don't even think I've seen an interview where Schrader was like, yeah, I watched Winter Light and got a lot of inspiration. Not that they're the same film, but there are so many similarities to it. So there are a lot of ways you can go. There are a lot of different paths you can take, but this is as good a film to start with as any of them.
I think I will try Winter Light first. Because like when Schrader talks about First Reformed, he mostly talks about Robert Bresson films. And I don't think he ever really mentioned Bergman. Maybe he did. I'm not sure. So I'll try Winter Light. I've always wanted to see The Virgin Spring as well because of its connection to Last House on the Left and Wes Craven's fascination with it. Persona, well, I can tell you this. Like watching Seventh Seal did feel like the like one of those moments in college when you uncovered a director for the first time and you go like, oh, I gotta watch all of these.
Yeah, and it is like Kurosawa. I think Kurosawa and Bergman get mentioned in the same breath a lot, and deservedly so. I think I even read that Seventh Seal, the fact that it was set in a particular period was inspired by Seven Samurai in particular, which is just like, those two movies are so connected in my brain, and the fact that there are actual connections, it's just like the universe is trying to tell me something. But it is Bergman contains no shortage of riches and beauty, and just like the reputation is merited. It's so nice to be able to go through a filmmaker's works, all his entire lifespan, his entire filmography, and to feel the sense of like, yes, I understand. I get it. I am so inspired, and I am not at all in doubt as to why people are so influenced by this guy. It is to watch kind of the power of cinema almost being birthed in a way, particularly, Seventh Seal, Persona, like these films that are just landmarks, and you see the way they influence. They are so ahead of their time. And Persona was 1966, definitely inspired by French New Wave and things like that. But it takes little elements of that, but it is so filtered through Bergman's sense of, Persona is almost like, go through, maybe watch Winter Light, maybe watch Virgin Spring and Magician and Wild Strawberries, and then get to Persona. But Persona is just jaw-dropping in every sense of the word.
Well, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it, Shawn.
You're going to do it. But what else about this film impressed you? What else stood out to you? Or on the contrary, since we've talked so much about what impressed us, was there anything that didn't work for you in this film?
Maybe if I watch it a few more times, I can like scrabble together some nitpicks, but not really. Like I was really moved by the entire experience. There was nothing in the movie where I was like, oh, I would do that differently. How dare you? This is Bergman. What I would say is watching The Seventh Seal was very much like the first time I watched Casablanca or Citizen Kane. These movies you hear about a lot that are referenced in culture, all over the place. Like you've seen it in The Simpsons. You know what the movie is. Well, guess what? You don't. And if for whatever reason you have not watched The Seventh Seal yet, but you've made it to this point in the conversation, I would just encourage you to stop what you're doing, push pause, come back to us later, watch the movie and experience it for yourself. Because yes, you'll recognize some visual cues and some story beats from what you've gathered throughout your movie watching during your life. But the film is still going to like wallop you. Like you're still going to be surprised. Like you will enjoy Psycho even if you already know that Norman is Mother, right? Like it's still a brilliant movie. The surprise, that knowledge won't affect you. Because you know how this movie ends with the dance of death, you will still love this film.
It's a journey to get there, and the journey is well worth taking. And I feel, it's funny. We talked about, because we wanted to do, like we said, Bergman is a filmmaker that, for some amazing twist of fate, having seen as much as you have, and me trying to find things to introduce you to, it's amazing that we found Bergman. But part of the reason we wanted to go in this direction was because of Max von Sydow and his recent passing.
Yes.
And this film, again, this was not his. I don't know if this was his first. I think maybe it was. I know they'd worked together in theater before, but this may have been their first film together.
I believe it is their first partnership.
Yes. So it's not the last one either. And I am very, very excited for you as you kind of delve into Bergman's filmography to just see. Same with Bergman, like, Seventh Seal, you might think you have him pegged as a filmmaker, and you watch all his other stuff and you're like, oh my God, this guy, what was he not capable of? It's the same thing with Max von Sydow. He has a completely similar elements and similar vibes in some ways as far as thematically, but in Virgin Spring, he plays a completely different character. And he has a bit part in Winter Light. He will appear again and again in Bergman's films, and what an incredible performance. I feel like, again, Max von Sydow was just a master of his craft, and it's wonderful to watch this movie and to feel the sense of honoring his memory in that way, because Seventh Seal really is a film you can watch and be like, man, that guy, what a great way to kind of send him off and honor his memory. But how did you feel about that, being a fan of Max von Sydow and finally getting to see this movie, this iconic performance of his?
He's so good in it, and he's beautiful. He's crazy beautiful in this movie.
He was 26 years old.
Yeah, like the way that they light him in certain sequences, you're just like, whoa, that's a handsome dude. He's a perfect combination of handsome and pretty. Very, very impressed by him. And yes, the performance is fantastic. You know this already, but we're going to be covering Max von Sydow's life on the Rest in Pictures podcast, and I'm extremely excited just to go through his filmography because it is so varied and eclectic. He did it all, and I just can't wait to wrap myself in his career. And that's probably, to be honest, where I'm going to start with Bergman is watching the rest of his collaborations with Max von Sydow.
Well, some of the best films Bergman made were collaborations with von Sydow, and regardless of how big the role was. I mean, you have films like Shame, which is, again, what an incredible film. And I feel like not enough people talk about it, but also, Through a Glass Darkly, he's in that, and the small part in Winter Light, and Hour of the Wolf, man, talk about, that's another one I would love to hear your thoughts on. There's just so much. There is so much richness to both of their careers, and to see them with each other and the love they have for each other. I mean, it's just like to get to watch all these incredible artists come together and work to the best of their ability with the best material there are so few things that are more thrilling than that. So I'm like, you got to keep me posted. I'm so excited.
Well, we're going to get you on, Shawn. I think that's going to be a partnership between Missing Frames and Rest in Pictures. You, me, and Aaron. I think we'll have a really good full conversation all about Max von Sydow's career.
I am all up for that. I could not be more excited. But is there anything else we want to say about The Seventh Seal? Have we gotten everything off our chests about it.
I mean, we didn't really mention the performance of B.B. Anderson as Mia.
Let's talk about them a bit, because they, again, it's such a contrast to what's happening in the film. People think of it as death and despair and sadness, but there's this beauty and this wonderful sense of fun with this family and this sense of, again, they imbue it with this humanity.
She's like this beacon of light in the film. And I'm a fan of B.B. Anderson, and I have never seen her at this point in her career. And I think she's a really strong contender amongst this really impressive cast. Yeah. And of course, Joff, played by Nils Poppy. I don't know. Again, American. I struggle. He's extremely good too. And the first time he sees the vision of the Virgin Mary with the baby Christ walking through the field, and you're like, oh, what's the deal here? Is that just some lady? Is he crazy? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And the way that his visions play back into the film over the course of it, and the fact that the movie ends with his vision of the dance of death, and his performance in witnessing the dance of death. It's all on his face. The entire thesis of the movie just lands right there on his smile and in his eyes, and he just nails it.
And I love the scene where in the middle of the film where he's at the bar and the blacksmith is like, "Where's my wife?" And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the other guy is like, no, you're an actor. And they make him get up and dance. And just like
so
that.
Good.
Again, we talk about Bergman is one of the great horror directors. This is not a conventional horror scene, but there's something so disturbing about the way everyone is just shouting and chanting and making him kind of like get up and dance and do his little march. It's so unsettling. But you know what's funny about Nils Pope, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to say Nils Poppy because that sounds like puppy, and he is kind of like a puppy in this movie. He was a comedian. He was
that makes sense.
I think he'd acted and he'd done some theater stuff, but he was known as a comedian, and this was not a standard performance for him. Like he, as far as I'm aware, and I haven't seen him in much else, I don't think he returned to the Bergman fold. And this is kind of a standalone performance in his career, whereas from what I've read, his other performances never remotely approached this. They were all kind of like banal and sort of like meh. But like it is all the more impressive to see the way Bergman can work with his actors and pull that kind of performance from them and pull that beauty out of someone who apparently just like after this never really like found another role quite like it and was able to reach the same levels. So I do love him.
B.B. Anderson is most known for her collaborations with Bergman, but she appears in maybe one of the trashiest 70s movies of all time, The Concorde Airport 79, as well as one of my all-time favorite movies, Babette's Feast in 1987.
Oh, yeah.
And Babette's Feast, if you haven't seen that movie, that should be put on your watch list as well.
I do need to see that. And just wait till you see her in persona. Like, oh my God.
I mean, she's in all of them here. She's in The Magician with him, Scenes of a Marriage, Persona. Like, yeah, I'm going to see a lot more B.B. Anderson.
The other thing you'll learn about Bergman is the dude was with all these actresses, like all of them. They all loved him, and he loved them, and he went from one to the other. And what's fascinating to me is that even after their relationships reached their ends, no matter how kind of brokenhearted or dismal the end of the relationship was, they still worked with him. They loved him so much that they continued to work with him. That is insane. But like every single, like it's like B.B. Anderson, she's stunning, and you have Liv Ullmann later on, who their first collaboration, Bergman's and Ullmann's, was Persona, and they were together. They had a kid together, but like it's incredible. Just these wonderful, beautiful women. And Seventh Seal isn't a great example, but Bergman was such a champion of the female. And he wrote some of the greatest, most complex and fascinating feminine characters and female characters. You'll get to see that a lot in his later work, not so much in Seventh Seal, but you do see it in Persona and other films. Just like the complexities, he had it down, and it's really, really incredible. I'm very, very excited to see where you go from here and how you react to everything else.
That makes two of us. But, like I said, I feel like I've just discovered this hot new talent. And I need to watch all of his movies.
I agree. That's a great way to describe it. So what do you think? Should we dive into final ratings?
Oh, yeah, sure.
What is our final? We have so many options here. We could do chessboards. We could do the Dance of Death. Like, what do you think we should do as our final rating?
Oh, I kind of like the idea of how many visions you'd give it.
How many visions? I like that too. So how many visions would you give Seventh Seal, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest?
I feel weird giving any movie 5 anything after a first watch. It has happened in my lifetime. I'm not quite prepared to give Seventh Seal a 5, but again, like, I can't really think of any negatives. So I'm going to go with 4. I absolutely loved it. I loved the movie. I will be watching it again. And it might rise to a 5. But it is a movie that I just need to live with for a little while.
I think you want to bump it up to 4.5 at least.
Okay, 4.5. Okay, I'll give you 4.5 because I literally cannot think of a complaint about the film.
But I get that too. I remember when I watched The Wild Bunch with John Mills, I was like, I give it a 4. This is undoubtedly a 5-star movie. I just need to sit with it a little bit and I need to process it. But I totally get that. This is absolutely, for me, obviously a 5-star film, and still to this day my favorite Bergman movie. But I am so excited for you as you start off your Bergman journey and to be able to participate in that a little bit, and to see as you come back to Seventh Seal, having watched a few more of his films, how it might change your perspective of it and how it might shape your opinion.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you this. Of the 3 films you've introduced me to through Missing Frames, My Neighbor Totoro, The Graduate, and The Seventh Seal is absolutely my favorite. And I like those other two.
They're great. I mean, yeah, they're all great, but that is a solid pick. But this has been great. I'm so excited for you. Brad, thank you so much. And do share with the good people at home where else they can find you on the internet. You're doing so many awesome things. Tell the people at home about it.
Indeed. You can find me on all social medias at MouthDork. You can find me on the Rest in Pictures podcast talking about Max von Sydow in the near future. We just finished an episode on Kirk Douglas, and that was a lot of fun going through his filmography. You can find the podcast that I do with my wife, the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast, at CBCC Podcast. We cover comic book couples and work our way through their relationships using a variety of self-help gurus. We just finished our nearly 3-month-long conversation on Rogue and Gambit from the X-Men series, and we are about to launch a new series on Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. And of course, you can find me on the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast at ItModcast on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me every day on Film School Rejects. And you can read interviews that I have done with people like Paul Schrader, not to humble brag or not so humble brag. And I just did a series of interviews with some behind the line or below the line people on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I talked to Neil Scanlon, who's the creature effects supervisor on that, and I had a blast talking Star Wars monsters with him. So yeah, Film School Rejects, Brad Gullickson, come find me.
Yeah, basically there's no shortage of Brad Gullickson on the internet, and I highly encourage everybody to go find it all. You can find me on the internet at YayShawnDoorman on Twitter, at ShawnDoorman on Instagram, and I would love to hear from our listeners about Seventh Seal, about Ingmar Bergman. I would love to hear some recommendations for Brad. Where should he go next? He's going to be watching Virgin Spring. We're going to be watching probably The Magician at some point, but where would you direct him if you were to pick his next Bergman film? Reach out to both of us. And again, check out thenerdparty.com if you haven't. You can follow The Nerd Party at Join Nerd Party, like the Facebook page The Nerd Party. It's also at The Nerd Party on Instagram. And if you like what you're hearing here, give us a 5-star rating. I would love that. Any 5-star rating that leaves a review, I will read your review on a future episode. They make me so happy. They help me out so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next time. It is finished.
Yeah!